Hello, I am Coach Ryan, and this is going to be a video on jump training. What this video is not going to be, this is not going to be a video where I tell you do 30 squats 6 days a week for 4 weeks and your vertical will go up by 3 inches, because I cannot promise that. What I can do is I'm going to say what worked for me before, why it worked for me, and then you can take why it worked and apply it to yourself. Because I am not you. We are different people. What worked for me is going to work for me. It might work for you, it might not work for you. But why it worked for me will work for you, because the why is how the human body works. And human bodies are generally very consistent in how they work between person to person. So, with that being said, let's get into the basics, the introduction. So, jumping is a physics equation. Force equals mass times acceleration is a very basic equation. If you rework it for velocity, you get this. Velocity is how high you jump. The higher the velocity, the higher you jump. So let's look at the equation. Force. The higher your force, the higher your velocity. That's what this is saying. Which makes sense. If you put more force into the ground, you go higher in the air. That makes sense. That checks out. Mass. The heavier you are, the lower you jump. Again, this makes sense. With these two being constant and you increasing your mass, your vertical goes down. Makes sense. Now, time. If you jump and it takes you 3 seconds to put 100 pounds of force into the ground, the jump only cares about that last fraction of a second before you leave the ground. So that 100 pounds of force, most of that doesn't go into velocity. However, if instead you put that same 100 pounds of force into 0.3 seconds, that last fraction of a second when you jump has a higher percentage of that 100 pounds of force, therefore you jump higher. So, as time goes down, velocity goes up. What this means is that when we're doing our exercises, when we're planning what workouts to do, we want to be able to do ones that allow us to produce the most force in the least amount of time. Sure, it's really cool if you can squat 1,000 pounds, but if it takes you 10 seconds to do so, but this other person can squat 200 pounds in 1 second, I am willing to bet money that the person who squats 200 pounds in 1 second has a higher vertical than the person who squats 1,000 pounds and it takes them 10 seconds. Other than that, mass. The real killer when it comes to mass is muscle. Muscles are dense, muscles are heavy. So what we want to do is every gram of muscle, every little bit of muscle that we produce, we want to make sure that it's giving us the most force in the least time possible. The muscle is going to be the heaviest, and if you overdo it, that can lead you to jumping not as high, and you're like, why am I not jumping high? I'm way more jacked. Being jacked is quite literally the issue. We want to be light and strong, not necessarily big and strong. Okay. The first of these muscles, hamstrings and glutes, make up this part of your body. It's going to be the back of your thigh and your butt. That makes up 30 to 33% of your jump. Calves is the back of your lower legs. And then quads is the front of your thigh. It's right there. So, if you noticed, the majority of the strength from your jump comes from the back of your body. We call that the posterior chain. The posterior chain is what produces all of the force that pushes you upwards. What happens on the anterior, the front of the body, is your quads and your tibialis anterior, that's right there, is what stabilizes your body and helps absorb everything. So, your hamstrings, your glutes, and your calves put all of the force into the ground, and your quads control it. So if you don't have strong quads, you don't have any control, you hurt yourself. If you have really strong quads but weak everything else, then they're not going to be able to produce that much. So despite the fact that your quads are really strong, you're not going to get that high. And quads in this controlling aspect are really important. That being strong is quite literally a third of your jump. Like, don't get me wrong, your quads being strong enough is super important. but just physically, that's not what produces the force. Don't ignore your quads. They are very important. If you're struggling with jumping, it could be your quads. If you're struggling with jumping, it could be any of these three categories. It could be your calves. For me personally, I always had weak calves, so that cut my vertical. For some of you, it could be your hamstrings or your glutes. For some of you, it's your quads. Some, it could be your momentum. But all of these aspects are important. Do not ignore any one of them. That's just what they do. Exercising is not magic. What do I mean by that? What I mean is exercises get you better at the exercise you are doing. Doing jumping jacks makes your body better at doing jumping jacks, right? Jumping off one leg makes you better at jumping off one leg. If you're training to jump higher for the sake of volleyball, then doing exercises as similar to the volleyball jump as possible is going to get you the most transferable results. If you can jump really high off your right leg and really high off your left leg, sure, you're going to be able to jump high off of both legs. But if you train jumping high off of both legs, you're going to be able to jump higher off of both legs. And that's going to translate better than working on each leg individually. So, when we're doing your exercises, when you're picking your exercises, do your best to pick exercises that rely on both legs at the same time, that are explosive in the way that volleyball is. And then when you're doing things where you're putting momentum into your jump, like depth jumps is an example I'll use later, make sure you step. The first step you do and then the second step you do is the same that you would in your approach. If you're a righty, that's normally going to be right left, right? That foot first, that foot second, every time, and train that. Because if you train it that way, then it's going to translate to your volleyball approach better than if you train it the other way, right? Same thing with blocking. When you're working on your ability to jump by moving sideways like this, work on always making sure you step with your outside leg second to last, and then this leg last, and then you jump, right? Or if you're going the other way, your outside leg second to last, and then that leg, the inside leg last. Exercises. There are generally two types of exercises that we care about for the sake of jumping higher. We care about plyometrics and we care about resistance training. Plyometrics. Plyometrics are exercises. I'm going to put a link in the description that gives a better descriptor of what plyometrics do. Plyometrics are exercises where you are touching the ground in as little time as possible. This is the time aspect. This is the majority of the time aspect in the equation I talked about earlier. Getting really good at plyometrics is going to train your body to produce a lot of force quickly, right? That checks our bucket list from the equation earlier. We like the force and we like the quick. That is the whole point of plyometrics. Getting good at plyometrics allows you to use your strength more efficiently for the sake of jumping, right? But again, plyometrics is using your strength more efficiently. If you don't have the strength, plyometrics isn't going to do so much because you need to be strong to use the plyometrics, right? If you don't have the strength, you can be as efficient as you want, and it's not going to do too much. Here, so what I mean by jumps where you're not going to be touching the ground very long, these are two very classic examples. The second her feet touch the floor with both feet, she jumps up. Same thing. She jumps over the hurdle. The second it hits the floor, she jumps again. And then she could keep on doing this, right? Another example that you've seen all the time, jump rope, right? The second your feet hit the floor, the rope's going to hit you, so you have to jump again. And that's a really casual, good way to do plyometrics. It really focuses on the calves. Another example of plyometrics that we wouldn't think of because it's not jumping, clapping push-ups. Or just any push-up where you push your body to the point where your hands leave the floor. That is plyometric, by definition. The most basic form of plyometrics are what called depth jumps. You step off with one foot, you land with both feet. The second you land, you jump as high as you can. And then you do that again. Then you do that again. And you're working on your ability to jump as high as you can, as quickly as you can. Now, for something like depth jumps, like I said, we get better at what we work on. So, if whenever you take an approach, you step right, left, then step off the box every time with your right foot first because your right foot's always touching the ground first on in game. So train it like that. Okay. Resistance training comes in two styles. It comes in hypertrophy and strength training. Hypertrophy is the scientific name for increasing muscle size. That's what it means. To increase muscle size, you need to break your muscles down a lot. The ideal rep range for hypertrophy is going to be 5 to 30 reps per set. And you're going to do a lot of sets, and as long as your form remains pretty good, just work as hard as you can and just make your muscles really, really, really tired and break them down, and that's going to build them back up, right? So, right, just for a visual example, this was your muscle fiber, then you did hypertrophy training, and now your muscle fiber is this big, right? It went from 1 band of size to 3 bands of size. It got that much bigger. What strength training does is strength training is only 3 to 6 sets. So you can do strength training that gives you hypertrophy, but most strength training is not going to give you a lot of hypertrophy. What strength training does is you had this one muscle, right? The same one from before, where that one knows how to do things really well. Now you have this more additions to your muscle, and these additions they don't know what to do, right? They're not very effective. They don't know how to do things. What strength training does is it takes these new guys and is like, okay, I'm going to make you as effective as the original guy. That's what strength training does. So when we do training, you're going to want to switch from making your muscles bigger to making them effective, making them bigger to making them effective. Because if they're effective, they help. If they're just bigger but they're not effective, that's mass that we don't need, and therefore that's going to decrease our vertical, right? So we need both. You can't jump. You can jump higher by just doing hypertrophy because some hypertrophy is going to make you stronger and some strength is going to give you hypertrophy. But generally, you want both, and that's going to be the most effective way to jump higher. There's 2 ways to progress strength. For hypertrophy, it's really easy. You add more sets. You don't necessarily add a lot more weight, but you just do more of the exercise. That's what hypertrophy does. Strength, you want to be doing very little reps, remember, 3 to 6, because you're just trying to make yourself as tired as you can as quickly as you can. Because you're not trying to get more muscle, you're trying to make it more efficient. So, there's 2 ways to do this. You either increase the weight but keep the same number of sets, or even decrease sets or reps that allows you to do more weight. So if you are like, okay, I was doing 180 on the squat last week, I'm going to bump it up to 200, but I'm going to do one less round. That is good strength training. The other way you can do is increase speed. Keep the same weight, or maybe get a little bit more weight, but no more than like 5 pounds. Keep the same sets or drop sets like mentioned before, but do the same exercises faster, right? Weight or speed, both of them will overload your muscles in the way that we want for strength. I personally recommend speed because we're trying to jump higher. And again, force over time, speed, time. Here's some examples for muscle-specific exercises. For glutes and hamstrings, we have glute bridges, deadlifts, squats, Nordic curls, split squats, quad squats, split squats, leg extensions. Basically, most things that get the glutes and hamstrings also get the quads, just by definition. Glute bridges and Nordic curls are the only example on the glute hamstring that doesn't affect the quads at all. Deadlifts is majority glute hamstring, but it still uses the quads. And then calves are kind of their own thing. Calf raises are a really good way to get stronger calves. Seated calf raises, I jump roping too. And then the thing is, like, I've mentioned this as resistance training on purpose. You do not need to use weights for this if you do not want to. Nordic curls, for example, is one of the hardest hamstring exercises in the world. It is body weight. Right? A pistol squat, body weight. Calf raises, you can do those body weight. Right? Do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to do weight training, you don't have to do weight training, but you can still do hypertrophic and strength specific training without weights. Weights makes it easier, sure, but you can do it without it. And doing it is more important than doing it the best possible way. Now, conditioning. Conditioning is really important because I don't care if you can jump as high as the highest jumper in the world once. If we are playing a game and we went to the third set, and it was supposed to end at 15, and now both teams are 20-20, and everyone's getting tired, and now you can't jump, that doesn't help us, right? Anybody can jump really good when they're fresh. Your really good players can jump a similar height when they're tired. So, this comes in the form of conditioning. Conditioning is just things that work out your legs that's going to make them able to work for longer. My recommendation for conditioning, do what you're going to do. Whatever you like to do is good. I like jump roping. I could convince myself to jump rope, so I did jump roping. I had a friend who liked to bike, so he did biking. I played ping pong with that friend, and we would get really intense, and that worked for us too, right? A different friend liked to jog. Some of my friends played basketball. I would play volleyball. Like, that is conditioning. It's training your body to be able to do these things for longer. These are generally lighter conditionings. You can do them sooner after an exercise, after like strength training or plyometric training, because they're not that intense on your body. It's more just getting your body moving. Heavier conditioning. These are sprinting and hill sprints. These are breaking down your body. These are a form of plyometrics. These are a form of strength training, but they're also very heavily cardiovascular, so they're counted as conditioning. Hill sprints is the number one best form of conditioning for jumping higher, by far. However, if you like sprints more than hill sprints, and you're going to do sprints, then do sprints. I'm okay with that. Right? And just like with plyometrics and just like strength training, you're doing this so hard that you're getting tired fast. That is the point. Right? You're running so hard that if you're not like wanting to stop after 30 seconds, then you did not run hard enough. You can run harder. And sure, you might not stop after 30 seconds, but if you're running slow enough that you don't want to stop, then you need to be running faster. You need to be running harder. Form. Form is so important. If you have bad form, you get injured. Really focus on good form. These are the ways where you can learn what good form is. Easy one, online. If you want to do deadlifts, search into Google. Good deadlift form video. And then click on the first video. It's going to be like 30 seconds long. It'll show you how to do a deadlift with very good foundational technique. And then you copy it, you take like a video of yourself, you compare the difference between your forms to make sure it's lining up, and then you do that, right? That's a really good way to learn form. The other way to learn form, personal trainers. If you're going to the weight training EP that Monument offers, then they are paid to make sure you have good form. So that's a good way to be like, hey, I've been doing this exercise on my own and I've been struggling with the form. Can you help me? Or can you do a check to make sure I'm doing everything right? They're paid to do that. Again, coaches, we are paid to help you. It is literally our job. And I coach because I enjoy helping. So if you need help in learning how to do a specific exercise, then come to me before practice, come to me after practice, come to me during a water break. And I can either talk to you then, or I can send you resources, or I can figure something out to help you with that form. And then the final option, I put an asterisk there because friends are a hit or miss. If your friend knows what he's talking about, then it's somebody you're close to, who you can work out with, who can watch you for form, right? Where you get the benefit of the personal trainer, the coaches of being in person, but it doesn't have to be paid for because they're your friend. They're free. However, if they do not know what you're talking about, then you both could be doing bad form and you'll have no idea. And that is bad, right? So, friends, hit or miss. If they know what they're doing, and they sound like they know what they're doing, and then you watch a video online and it doesn't disagree with what your friend said, use your friend. If your friend does not know what they're doing, do not use your friend. Okay, recovery. You can do all the exercises perfectly that you want, and you won't get any benefit if you do not recover enough. Because what exercising is breaking down your muscles, breaking down your body. If you don't rebuild your body, then what was the point of breaking them down? The point of breaking them down is to rebuild them stronger. If you don't give your body the opportunity to rebuild, then that's no good for anybody. The most important things for recovery and recovering fast, number one, sleep. If you are a teenager, it is recommended in a perfect world, you're getting 9 hours of sleep or more, 9 to 10. That is probably not happening. I've met teenagers. I was a teenager. Try to get at least 8. You will be amazed how much faster you recover from doing hard exercises with enough sleep. It is amazing how much of an impact that has. Otherwise, rolling out. Rolling out comes from foam rollers. That's that object right there. But rolling out does not have to use a foam roller. It's anything that digs into the muscle tissue and helps it repair better in a more efficient way than what it did, than what it will do on its own. So getting a massage, like a professional massage, is actually getting the same benefit, but that is also expensive, which is why most people use a foam roll. But you don't have to use a foam roll. You can use a wooden stick. You can use your broom handle. I used the bar that you use for bench press, and I rolled out on that. And it was not pleasant, but it worked. And I did recover faster. Right? You can use anything. Lacrosse balls are super popular. Tennis balls are a little too squishy, but that kind of golf balls also work, that dense ball. The other important factors for recovery: nutrition. You are breaking your body down. You're breaking your muscles down. Your muscles need new protein to rebuild the muscles. If you do not get enough protein, then you're not going to be able to rebuild the muscles. You're not going to recover as well. Other thing, for athletic people, the vast majority of the sugars in your body are stored in your muscles, and then as you do exercises, your muscles eat those sugars. So you worked out really hard. Now you need to replenish those sugars. Because if you don't replenish those sugars and your muscles don't have enough sugars, your muscles are going to start eating themselves because they need the fuel. And that doesn't produce stronger muscles, that produces weaker muscles. So eating enough carbs is really important, right? Carbs and protein and fats, getting enough of all three of those macronutrients is really important to recovery. Hydration. Muscles get tired and you get sore because of lactic acid. Lactic acid is produced because the muscle did not have enough oxygen when it was breaking down the sugars. Drinking more allows your blood to give your muscles more oxygen. Drinking more allows you to do more exercise for longer and allows you to recover faster because it can deliver nutrients to your body faster. Hydration is extremely important. Time. If you did nothing I just told you to do and you wait long enough, you will recover. Just plain and simple. You don't get enough sleep, you don't roll out, you don't drink enough water, you don't eat enough food, you give yourself enough time, you'll be fine. Right? The other things help you recover faster, but time will just help. Other thing that will help: light stretching. Stretching, just getting some blood flow to the area, does promote recovery. If you stretch too hard, you're actually gonna stretching too hard will break down your muscle fibers as well, so that's not gonna help recovery. That's actually gonna slow you down. But doing some light stretching, like well within your flexibility means, is going to help you recover faster. It just promotes blood flow, it gets the muscles active, it's good for you in general. Scheduling. So we're going to talk about scheduling in 3 terms. First off, the long-term schedule. The idea behind what we're doing when we're doing jump training is If you've never done any training before, get into generally decent shape, right? Do some weight training. Don't specifically worry about jumping because just getting into better shape will make you jump higher. Plain and simple. Push ups, squats, lunges, bench press, uh, weighted squats, like whatever you want. It does not matter at this point because just getting into better shape, like running, jogging, jump rope, just getting into good shape is going to help you a lot. Just plain and simple. So after that, after you've gotten into pretty decent shape, like you're not maybe not like the strongest person ever, but like you feel good, right? You're like, oh, I can do push-ups, I can do squats, like I'm feeling good. I want to challenge myself. When you hit that point, what we're gonna do hypertrophy, 3 to 4 weeks. We're making the muscles bigger. After we make the muscles bigger, we make them stronger and efficient, right? We increased our mass, now we increase our force with that increased mass. Now, once we've increased the force, we're getting to the point where we can't really increase our force much more without getting more muscle. So, what do? We get more muscle. And then we get more strength. Then we get more muscle. Then we get more strength. Then we get our muscle. 3 to 4 weeks is a general benchmark. If it feels better, do 3 weeks of hypertrophy and then 6 weeks of strength training. You can honestly never do hypertrophy if you want to. I don't recommend it. It does make your life easier, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Uh, the other thing, while we're doing that cycle, the entire time we're doing plyometrics. Because plyometrics, these are two separate things we're doing at the same time. Do plyometrics just the entire time. Work on that efficiency, work on the elasticity that it gets you, work on your ability to just jump higher because your muscles can rebound better. And the plyometrics will help your strength training in the making the muscles you're building more effective. So that's the long-term plan. Some important notes. When you're doing your schedule, when you're doing the schedule you wrote for yourself, I'm going to go on a tangent for a second. Let's say you have like an A in a class and you're really proud of yourself, and then a project or an assignment comes and you're like, I don't want to do this. And then you don't do it. You get a 0. You go from an A to a D because it just tanks your grade. Or you have your straight A, you have your A, and the same project comes and you don't want to do it, but instead of not turning it in and doing nothing, you decide, okay, I'm just going to like barely try and turn something in, and you get a 60. Now you're at a B plus. I like that B plus way more than I like that D. Right? That B plus looks good. That 100, that A to a D does not look good. Right? So if you're like, man, I really don't want to do this right now. Okay, but do something. Because just doing that little bit, even though it's not necessarily the thing that you had scheduled, still helps. It 100% still helps. Because that momentum of consistently doing something builds. Other thing to note, plyometric and strength training need a lot of recovery time. The idea behind them is you're giving 100% of your effort for low reps. And if you don't have 100% of your energy back by the time you start again, then you aren't ready to do more strength training. So you need a lot of recovery time. Hypertrophy, you don't need as much recovery time because you're basically just bullying your muscles. And if they start to be like, oh, we're fine again, bully them harder. That is how hypertrophy works. If you need to rest, rest. Pushing yourself too hard and then having to take an entire week off because of an injury is no good. So, yes, while I just said a 60% is better than a 0, that 0 is one day. If you get injured, that's zeros for like a week. I'd rather get a 0 on one assignment and then go back to getting hundreds than go from getting hundreds to getting like 7 or 8 zeros and then try to claw my way back. Right? Getting that one drop, like, it's not ideal, but it's more ideal than getting injured and then just getting taken out. All right? Scheduling. This is an example schedule for weeks. So this is during the season, assuming a Tuesday, Thursday practice schedule. So Tuesday I practice, Thursday I practice, and I'm tired. So I'm taking Friday off. And then Saturday I'll do some plyometrics. But because plyometrics are tiring, I'm not going to do anything intense the day after. So Sunday I'm going to do some light miscellaneous something. I might do some yoga. I might stretch. I might play some very casual ping pong. I might go on a hike. I might do some light conditioning. That is a great day to do light conditioning. And then Monday rolls around. If we're in the hypertrophy section, like if we're in the 3 to 4 weeks we're doing hypertrophy, then Monday hypertrophy, Wednesday hypertrophy. If we're not, if we're in the strength training section, Monday's a really good time to do some conditioning. Do some intense conditioning. Maybe not heavy, but harder than light. So like a moderate conditioning. And then Tuesday we have practice. And then Wednesday, do your strength training. And then Thursday you have practice. And then you're off. You don't have to follow this, right? This is an example. If you've never done training before, this is intense. If I was an absolute beginner, I would go practice, plyometrics, off, light conditioning, uh, basic conditioning. I'd cut that out entirely. I'd make that easier. Right? If I was completely new to this, I would basically only add this. Add this and then some like really easy workouts. Because this is an example. This is what I might do, like if I'm planning it, but even if you're planning it, like a tournament happens, you don't do your Saturday, Sunday thing. Maybe Monday comes around or Tuesday comes around or Wednesday comes around and you're like, well, instead of strength training, I'll do plyometrics. It is adaptable to what you want to do. And this is an example, you base it off your own capabilities. You know how much you can handle. Nobody else knows as much as you can handle because they don't live in your body. You live in your body. Your body is telling you, oh, you need to take a rest. Oh, you don't. Listen to it. So that's scheduling during the season. Off season. Playing volleyball is conditioning and plyometrics. You are jumping a lot, and it's good conditioning because you're jumping all the time, so you're not going to get tired by jumping a couple times. So if you're an addict, like how I was, you can literally just play volleyball every day. And that can be your off-season schedule. And that is okay. If you are not an addict, you might do something like this. Plyometrics on Monday, play some volleyball, take the day off, play some volleyball, take the day off, do some plyometrics, play some volleyball, repeat. Right? Off season is really the time to get stronger because you're not having to worry about practices that are eating up 2 of the 7 days of the week or more. An off season is just a time to have fun, right? But keep yourself active. Volleyball every day of the week is going to make you a better player and it's going to make you jump higher. It just is because jumping makes you jump higher and volleyball is a lot of jumping. Just case in point. For the strength training and hypertrophy schedule, this is an example of like your actual workout schedule. How we are going to do this is we're going to train a muscle group, then we're going to train a different muscle group while the group relaxes so we can not spend as much time in the gym. This allows you to get all of your leg muscles with really high intensity in like a quarter of the time it would take you if you were trying to do all of the exercises at once and then having to wait. This only works if you do not train the same muscle in 2 different exercises in a row, because that will be a breaking point. If exercise 1 has quads and exercise 2 has quads, your quads are giving out first. So, an example of this, do an exercise that targets glutes and hamstrings. If you're doing strength training, 3 to 6 reps. If you're doing hypertrophy, 5 to 30 reps. Then while you're resting them, do calves. And then while your calves are resting, do hamstrings. And then while your hamstrings are resting, do calves. If you do squats for glutes, hamstrings, and quads, then you could do squats and calf raises, squats and calf raises. And there you go. That's a really hard workout. It's working out your entire lower body, and it took you like 20 minutes. Sure, you were in a lot of pain those 20 minutes because you're working really hard, but it only took you 20 minutes, right? It doesn't take hours in the gym to do this. For plyometrics, plyometrics is a strength training, so same rep range recommendation. Plyometrics, you're just kind of jumping. Like that is as you're jumping the second your feet hit the floor, and that's literally all you're doing. So, as an example, depth jumps. You step off a box, you jump. You do that 3 to 6 times, you rest. And you're jumping as high as you can because you have time to rest. And then you rest for a while. Uh, you spend way too long time texting, and then you're like, oh, I should jump, and then you jump again. And then you rest. Different example, go knees to feet. Start with your knees on the floor, then jump so you land on your feet, and then jump again as high as you can. And then do that. And then do weighted jumps. I don't recommend doing much more than 10% body weight. You can round, so if like you're 180, then you can say 200, 10% of that's 20. 20 is a very easy weight. 18 is a little weird, but do roughly 10% of your body weight at most. So yeah, weighted jumps, rest, weighted jumps, rest. You can just do repeated squat jumps, right? It's just jumping the second you hit the floor and then resting. There's a lot of plyometric exercises. There's a lot of places to look. YouTube's a great resource. Injury prevention. Jumping is hard on your joints. One of the most common injuries in volleyball is called patella tendonitis, also known as jumper's knee, because jumping is hard on your body. Your knees are also mean, because if your ankles are too weak, your knees hurt. And if your hips are too weak, your knees hurt. Your knees just don't like you that much. What this means that if your knees hurt, like you have patella tendonitis, it might not necessarily be an issue at your knee. It could be an issue at your ankle. It could be an issue at your hip. You have to make sure that your entire lower body system's in working order, because if it's not, you might get injured. And injuries are no good. Nobody likes to get injured. So, here's some good recovery exercises and then just general benchmarks for if you're going to be doing a lot of intense jumping. This is called a single leg RDL. It really works your glutes. What you're going to do is you're going to stand on one leg. You're going to keep your leg mostly straight. You can bend it a little bit, like you see that bend, but don't bend it a lot. And keep your back straight. And then touch your fingertips to the ground. And then once you get good at that, you can pick up a weight while you do it. And you're working on your ability to balance yourself on one leg, and you're working on your ability to activate your glutes and your hamstrings. That's making sure that the issue's not at your hips. If the issue's at your ankle, work on stuff like being able to stand on one foot for prolonged periods of time. If you can't do that, the injury might be in your ankle. Otherwise, the good thing for your ankle is jump roping barefoot. You're having to absorb all of your jumping energy into your bare feet because you don't have your shoes to help you. So if your issue's in your ankle, this is going to help you recover. Otherwise, one of the best benchmarks for if you're good to be jumping all the time is if you can do a single leg squat. The majority of people who have knee pain do not have the strength or the stability to do a single leg squat. When I had knee pain, I was not able to do a single leg squat. I gained that ability. I was able to do a single leg squat. And this isn't just me. It's a lot of people I've talked to. If this is too hard, there are ways to progress to it. One of the easiest ways is to do knee touchdowns, right? So you stand on one leg, you have a box at a little bit below knee height, and then you do a single leg squat till your knee touches the box. And then you just slowly make that box lower until you can do a single leg squat. That is one of the easiest ways to progress to a single leg squat. Yeah. So that's the general for jump training. That's all we're really going to talk about. In conclusion, these are the key takeaways. If you take away nothing else from this video, please take away this. Number one, you get better at what you train. So train like you're going to be doing things in game, and it's going to translate the best. If you forget everything else, that's really helpful advice for planning general exercise. Again, A 60% is better than zero. Any training, even if it's not like what you're supposed to do or as intense as you're supposed to do, is better than not doing anything. Recover. If you do everything else right and you do not recover, you're not going to see benefits. That is just how the body works, because you need to give yourself time to replenish. If you do not, you are going to not get the benefits you want to get. And then the most important thing, or one of the most important things, preventing an injury is easier and better than rehabilitating an injury that has happened. If that injury never happens in the first place, that's way better than making it better after it got hurt. Do what you can to keep yourself from getting injured. Have good form. Meet the benchmarks we just talked about. Give yourself time to recover. Don't get injured is way better of a strategy than get injured and then fix yourself. But yeah, injury prevention is very, very important. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope this helped you.